You are now listening to Fourth Down Fiasco, Season 2.
Fires, Mike Sims, Walker, knocked down.
Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
In trouble, he's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again, goes to the 40, gets away again.
Jackson takes it himself. Look at him turn back and forth. Oh! He broke his ankles.
I have never seen this before in my life.
Still looking, firing, near corner. It's caught.
Denver, unbelievable.
And welcome to the Fourth Down Fiasco.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fourth Down Fiasco, your go-to podcast for all things football, brought to you by BetStamp. BetStamp is the sports bookie of all sports bookies because they keep everything in one place for you. They've got FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM, Bet365, all the big name bookies in one place just for you. It's super easy access. You can check them out at signupexpert.com/fiasco. Place a $10 bet if you're feeling froggy. You know, we've got the NBA playoffs going on right now. Shout out to the Nuggets. Are your Clippers still in, Tanner? Are they?
No, the Nuggets got eliminated.
Oh, pain. I didn't mean to pour salt in the wound.
Thanks,
you
man.
know, hey, go Nuggets. But, you know, plenty of sports for you to still be betting on currently. NHL is also a thing right now. You know, we've got the Dallas Stars doing their thing, going up against Winnipeg and the Jets. So, yeah, make sure you place that $10 bet again. That's signupexpert.com/fiasco. And with me, as always, is my co-host, contributor, Tanner Vinsky. No Danny Weber today because he somehow got stuck in the state of Wyoming. But Tanner, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, we're gearing up for Yale F, so I'm excited.
Yes, we are. We have a week and a half, basically. So first game starts May 17th. Very excited for that. It's going to be a good time. A lot of good football on the horizon for us. So,
Absolutely.
last couple of weeks, we have been talking about, obviously we took a break to talk about the draft. You and Danny did, but weeks before that, we were talking about just how all the divisions are going to shake out. I think that our starting place from here is kind of projecting who we think the top teams are going to be, and then we can get into like MVP race, offensive, defensive player of the year. But we'll start with the playoffs. So I will say real quick who Danny has. Danny only put 4. He was supposed to do 6, but Danny has Vienna, Rhein, Stuttgart, and the Nordic Storm in the playoffs. Tanner and I have those same 4 as well. And then on top of that, I have Madrid and Paris as the last 2 teams to make it to the playoffs. So Tanner, let me know what you're thinking, but those are the additional 2 teams that I had there.
I also have Madrid and Paris. I think Madrid has really shored up this offseason. And, I mean, they were so good last season that there's no reason with who they've added and having more stability in the quarterback room, especially with somebody who's been on NFL practice squads, that's going to be massive for them. So I see Madrid having a really good year. And Paris, I mean, has an NFL coach. Adding Jack Del Rio is going to be massive for that team. So it's tough because there's a lot of teams on the kind of on the bubble outside of those two that I think are going to have pretty good seasons. Like Tyrol, you can never count them out. They're definitely going to be consistent. They're going to hang around that 500, a little above 500. Munich's going to be the same story. I think Frankfurt's supposed to have gotten a lot better this offseason.
They did.
So there's a lot of teams you look at and it's like maybe one of them to get dethrone the top 6 teams, but just with how much talent is on these top 6 teams and how well they were last year. Like I said, I don't really see anybody trading places. The only thing that's going to, when we're looking at the playoffs, the only thing that's going to change is Nordic's going to kick out Munich just because Nordic's the new franchise that has, arguably the 2 best players in the league on their team.
I was about to say the reigning MVP and the reigning championship game MVP.
Yeah.
From, I believe, back-to-back years, actually, now that I think about that, which is wild.
I think so, too, yeah.
No, yeah, I'm with you. Madrid with the addition of Sinet, I mean, phenomenal quarterback. Yeah, does have NFL practice squad experience. I believe he also has potentially preseason experience. That I don't know for sure though, but he has been around NFL teams and in NFL huddles, which is huge in this league. That is experience that you can't just give up. That there's no real comparable 1-to-1 for that. And then Paris. Yeah, to your point exactly, the addition of Jack Del Rio as the coach, former Super Bowl winning. He wasn't a head coach when he won a Super Bowl, but a Super Bowl is a Super Bowl. On top of the fact, that he has been just a head coach in the NFL for several years afterwards, has seen some of the greatest talent in the world as far as American football is concerned. So I think it's going to be really, really hard to beat out those 6 teams. I think that the team with the greatest chance of actually getting kicked out of the bubble, oddly enough, is going to be the Rhein Fire, just because whenever you take out Jadrian Clark and Glenn Tunga, arguably the 2 best players in the ELF, definitely 2 of the top 5 best players in the ELF, it leaves some holes. And, they definitely had some new additions that will be helpful, but it is just a concern of whether or not if all the pieces align. Whereas, I think with Madrid, they've improved on an already good roster. Paris has improved on an already good roster, both of which made changes to their defense that were much needed. And so, that kind of puts Ryan as the odd man out of. They're still great. They should still most certainly be in the top 6, but they are the only team out of the 6 that I think didn't improve. And so that's
absolutely.
So that's the only reason why I think that they might take a step back and be, maybe we see Frankfurt sneak in there or something like that, which, I caught a lot of flack for ranking Frankfurt low. It was before they had signed people. Now that they have their roster, I can say that I think Frankfurt's going to be a pretty darn good football team this upcoming year. But I think that that's going to be our 6. Do you have any predictions as to how playoffs go? I know Danny has Vienna beats Nordic, Stuttgart beats Rhein, and then Vienna beats Stuttgart in the championship game. So he's got a Vienna-Stuttgart championship game lined up.
I think my big prediction for the playoffs is, and this is going to be kind of, I guess, roll into like my hot take a little bit too. I think Nordic's going to get bounced pretty early on just because they're right, like I said, new franchise, putting stuff together. So even though you have the playoff experience with Tunga and Clark, obviously commanding the team, I think that's really my big thought is I think actually Ryan is going to make it further in the playoffs than the Storm are going to. And I'm just going off of that based off organization value, right? Like, I've had the luxury of rooting for a relatively stable organization through like being from Pittsburgh, right? So like I put a lot of credence into really well run organizations. And the Rhein Fire have shown since we started looking at the sport, at least looking at the league, that they're the most well-run organization. So I just put faith into them that they're going to continue to do well. If I have to pick a preseason winner, strangely enough, I actually think I lean Stuttgart over anybody, just because Stuttgart has stayed relatively the same. And even though I don't know if they have the top end talent, they at least have the consistency between their rosters. And they put up a really good fight against, it was Ryan that they lost to last year, right?
Correct, yeah. In a very close game that they shot themselves in the foot for.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think they're just going to, overcome those hurdles they came with last year. And so I expect Ryan to get further than Nordic, and I expect Stuttgart to win it all.
That's spicy on the Nordic side. I mean, it does make sense, though. We're not just talking about a new construction of players put together, but we're also talking about, there are quite a few guys on the Storm who have never played in the European League of Football.
Exactly.
They played in whatever the Nordic version of it is, just like how we have like the GLF, the Italian League of Football, et cetera, et cetera.
Like
they play in that Nordic version
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, this is the best competition in Europe. It is the fastest, the biggest, the strongest, and don't get me wrong, that Nordic offensive line, they are trees. Every last one of them is like 6'4" or taller. But, there definitely is a a experience factor that they are greatly lacking, and there's nothing that they can do to overcome that other than just play football.
Well, a lot of people say outside of quarterback, the hardest position to play in football is offensive tackle, right? Because the reality of it is, I mean, you can be massive, but even if you're massive, that's not enough to stop edge rusher sometimes. Like, you have to do a lot more to stop an edge rusher than an edge rusher has to do to beat a tackle, right? So, they could be as massive as possible. I mean, we saw how bad Mekhi Becton was with the Jets and their coaching system. And then as soon as he left and went to Philly and had a really good coaching system, all of a sudden Mekhi Becton was amazing. So we don't know how well the Nordic offensive line coaching is going to be. So even if these guys are massive, there's a chance with how little experience they have that they just get rolled over.
Yeah. Now, I will say I do put in some good credit for John Shoup as the coach. I do think that he's a very good coach, has plenty of experience in the ELF as well as in other, high achieving organizations. I like the take of Ryan still making it past the Nordic Storm. I don't know. For me, the way that I see it kind of shaking out, I see Madrid and Paris getting bounced early. Unfortunately, I just don't think that Madrid has the defense that is capable to keep up with the Viking, Storm, Surge, and Rhine. I just don't think that they do. I think they have the offensive firepower for sure with Sinet, and then they have a slew of just offensive weapons for Sinet to be able to throw to. But I just don't think that defense is good enough. And I think kind of the same for Paris too, both of which have improved their defenses, but in a league that it's crazy how these top four teams that we're talking about were still able to improve over the offseason. And it's really just a testament to, like you said, well-run organizations. Rhine, phenomenally well-ran organization. Same with Vienna, same with Stuttgart. And then, the Surge are just doing things right early. So I think Madrid and Paris get bounced round one. I'm going to have the same thing as Danny, where it's going to be Vienna and Stuttgart in the championship game. But like you, I'm going to choose Stuttgart to win it this time. I think that if Stuttgart could have, not shot themselves in the foot, if Riley Hennessy could have not thrown 3 interceptions, if I'm trying to remember which running back it was, but if their running back hadn't have fumbled late in the game, 4 turnovers is 4 turnovers against the Rhine Fire, who had no turnovers. And so you're not going to win that game. But I think that if they don't do that and they beat Rhine, I think they also beat Vienna too, because Rhine just dismantled Vienna's defense. So, and I think that Stuttgart has the best defensive back room in the ELF, between guys like Fettig and Wilson, and they just got a whole bunch of guys who catch a lot of interceptions. If that ball lingers in the air for a little too long, it's getting picked. So, I'll go with Stuttgart for that one.
It's a good conversation with, the best DB room, because, the Rhine Fire DB room is also still terrifying.
Also baller, yes.
Yeah, they're insane. So
they're definitely 1A, 1B for sure.
Yeah. And that's when I was talking to Danny before, I said something along the lines of that I felt like Stuttgart was a step below the other 3 teams in Vienna, Nordic, and Rhine in terms of talent. But just because I think that talent-wise they're a little bit worse doesn't mean that consistency and coaching and playoff experience can't outweigh talent deficits, right? Because even though the Stuttgart team is really good, they don't have a Glenn Tunga on their roster. They don't have, just these.
Now they did bring in a brother who's gone. I think you're going to be very surprised by Oweo. He is. Yeah. He honestly should have gotten starter touches on. I'm trying to remember which team he was with. One of the other German teams last year. Should have gotten starter touches, didn't. But every time the man touched the ball, he did something crazy. He averaged 7.2 yards per play last year. Yeah. So, between him and then I think that Luis Geyer is the best, homegrown wide receiver, just as an overall target. Not, I think Bois is a greater, just break it off for a big game threat. But as far as just consistent in and out, best routes, best hands, most consistent, Luis Geyer is the most consistent homegrown wide receiver in the ELF. And man, they made some big improvements to that defensive line. So I'm pretty high on what Stuttgart did over the offseason. It's just a matter of they just cannot shoot themselves in the foot.
Absolutely. No, it's really just going to come down to how much they don't inflict wounds on themselves. Because if they can play safe football, I mean, like I said, they have the least amount that's changed over the roster over the last year, at least in these like top teams. So I think they have the best advantage going into the season this year.
Yeah. And Hennessy actually lives like 20 minutes away from, I'm spacing on his wide receiver's name, the new A import that he had. But they've been working in the off season because they live like 3 blocks down from each other. So they're already going to have a connection early on top of, you've got all the other guys returning. I think that they're going to be the team to beat personally. But regardless, the top 4 teams of Vienna, Rhein, Stuttgart, and Nordic Storm, those are going to be the teams to watch this season. I don't even know. Yes, Madrid and Paris definitely have the opportunity to upset one of them in the playoffs. It'd be awesome if they did, and I think it would be so good for the league if they did. But I really do think that there's a gap between the top 4 and then Madrid, Paris, and then I think that there's another smaller gap between Madrid, Paris, and those bubble fringe teams that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, cool. I don't know if I have a spicy take. I know that you had yours. I'm trying to see what. Do you know what Danny's spicy take was? Looking through our photos real quick.
Madrid wins the South by 3+ games. That's what he said.
Woo! Okay. All right, Daniel. His predictions I do like, though, and I'd like to go through some of those. Cologne, who just released their quarterback Musa, or maybe Musa left. I'm not entirely sure what all the details are, but Musa and Cologne are parting ways. Cologne is without a import at quarterback. 10 days before the season starts, basically. Not looking too good if you are the Cologne Centurions. Danny's big prediction is that Cologne folds after week 5, after their game against the Surge. And when he says folds, means that they are going to basically just disband. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on Cologne and the shit that they're going through right now.
I mean, that would be insane because we saw Barcelona kind of seed their operations as well, but they at least made it through the whole year. Yeah. So I think Cologne only making it a few weeks in and then completely dismantling themselves. I mean, that's gonna suck for ELF ownership, because they're gonna have to figure out, well, what do we do with the rest of their schedule? What are we gonna do with those teams? Are those automatic wins? Do they just forfeit everything? It's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think I disagree with Danny on this. I think that it'll be exactly the same as the Barcelona situation last year. There's already been talks about how poor Cologne handled their offseason and their ownership having issues and a lot of infighting. So I definitely think that, they're bound for a Barcelona situation where they're not going to start off the season well. And then, that week 5 game against the Surge, they're probably going to get absolutely obliterated. It's going to be another one of those 70-3 blowouts like Barcelona had. And then it's just going to be downhill from there. But I do think that they will forge enough guys to put out onto a field in order to continue playing.
And I think the ELF will probably try to guide that ship a little bit, be like, listen, we're going to help you out a little bit, try to at least get you to the end of the season so we don't have to change anything halfway through, right? Kind of just force them to do it, because I don't know how much interference the ELF had with Barcelona, but it kind of felt like that was occurring a little bit on the back end of it, where it was like Barcelona's pretty much done, but, they're still able to at least get guys out there and play their games, even if it's not pretty,
Right. At least play for pride. Exactly. What about this? Prague over under 3 wins. I guess it'd be 2.5 wins, but
I have Prague over, to be honest. I think they're going to have an improvement. I liked what they did in the offseason. I talked about it on our East episode that we did. That was the thing I said, where I was like, I mean, honestly, Prague might win the same amount of games as Wrocław. They could go 500. Now, I think the road to go 500 is really difficult for them. but it wouldn't be shocking. I mean,
yeah. I mean, for Prague, it's mainly just, especially early on, the front half of the season, you have got to win those games where people just kind of like overlook you, you know, because they play some pretty good teams throughout the season, and as soon as they, that first upset hits, the league's going to be on notice. That first game that Prague beats somebody who they're not supposed to beat, the league's going to be like, oh shit, okay, we have to take you seriously now. Got it. And are you pulling up their schedule right now?
I am. I'm trying to see. Perfect. Man, I made a mistake saying ELF schedule. I should have just gone to the ELF.
Oh, man. Gotta love the ELF. While you're looking that up, I'll go through the other two that Danny has. I don't think the other one that Danny has, I don't think that this is too crazy. Galaxy bounced back but missed the playoffs. I agree with that. I do think that they'll be exciting, but...
Prague plays Vienna week 1, so they're not winning that. They play Hamburg week 2, which is a winnable game for them, in my opinion. Then they go week 3. They go to Fehérvár, which is very winnable.
Yeah, so that right there, if they start off the season 2-1, I think that they have the ability to potentially, I'm not going to say 500, but maybe get 5 wins on the season, 4 or 5 wins on the season. But they've got to get them early because, as soon as that upset against Hamburg hits and the ELF world is on fire because we're like, oh shit, Prague beat Hamburg, every other team is going to take them seriously moving forward.
Yeah, they have a week 5 bye and they play a 4, so it's very realistic for them to be 2-2. Like, even if they just beat their division rivals in Fehérvár and Wrocław, like that's still, that would still be huge for them. I mean, like if they can be 2-2 by their bye in week 5, I mean, you could see them win 4 more games for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
And they do have a relatively easy schedule, which helps them a lot. Like they're not having to combat like these juggernauts consistently.
Okay, I think I have my spicy take here. I think I'm ready for this, and this will actually take us directly into our awards. I think Jalen Henderson for the Paris Musketeers is going to have better stats than Reed Sinet, but is not going to win MVP. And instead, Reed Sinet is going to win MVP.
That's spicy. Reed Sinet for MVP, rookie.
Reed Sinet for MVP. I think that Reed is in a very special position because, we've talked about it before on the show, at least the way that we rank MVP as the actual value that you add to your team, because we've talked in the past about like there's a reason why a guy like Kyle Kitchens last year really wasn't in the MVP discussion at all, even though he was an absolute monster of a defensive end. And it's because his team sucked, he just wasn't impacting winning like that. Yeah. And I think that Madrid's defense is just weak enough that Reed Sinet's going to have to put up some video game-like numbers. Yeah. And we're going to see that and be like, wow, that's incredible. And I think the reason why he beats Henderson for it, Henderson's also going to put up those video game stats, but Paris is in a tougher division, so they're going to drop some games.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be looking at a, potentially like 11-1 Madrid team or, 10-2 Madrid team that's they're 10-2 because Reed Sinet's putting up 4 touchdowns a game kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, with the other top teams like the Vikings are good top to bottom. Great defense. They have so many offensive weapons. Same with the Surge. Same with the Storm. Same with Rhine too, And so I think it'll be harder for the quarterbacks for either of those 4 teams to win the MVP over Sinet just because it'll be the Reed show.
Yeah, exactly. He's just going to be able to put up numbers that they won't be able to due to their competition.
Yeah. And even if they do, per se, people who are voting are going to be looking at it like, well, Yeah, of course. Riley Hennessy put up 35 touchdowns this year. Have you seen his team? Of course, Ben Holmes put up 35 touchdowns this year. Have you seen his team? Versus like Reed Sinnett, they're gonna be like, oh, he elevated people. So
yeah, I like it. No, I think it's a good take.
Any who do you have for MVP? Obviously, Danny has Ben Holmes, so we don't need to talk about that one.
My MVP is the safest MVP in the league. I'm taking Tunga again. I just think
I can't blame you.
He I don't care what team he's on. He's the best running back in the league. I'm sure he's going to put up similar numbers. Like, I would like to get spicy with it. I'd like to see something new, but I'm a running back guy. I played running back, so it's like I'm gonna
Fair enough.
I'm gonna go with the running back. Yeah.
I really thought about doing the same thing because I have a sticky note that I balled up and threw away. But yeah, on that one, I had Tunga winning MVP. It is hard to vote against him. I understand. It's kind of like the whole like Pat Holmes of the NFL type of debate of like, you don't really bet against Patty until Patty loses. And then you still don't really bet against Patty even after Patty loses because it just doesn't happen often. And I think Glenn's the same way, 2-time reigning regular season MVP. For me, really, I'm curious if voter fatigue hits. We see that all the time in the NBA with voter fatigue. And so, I just wonder if the people in charge of voting just go, can we really give Glenn Tunga another MVP?
Yeah, and I think it really is just going to depend on his numbers, to be honest, because if he puts up similar numbers to last year, there's no way you don't give him the MVP.
Yeah, if he has another 30 touchdown season, you have to. Like, it would be disrespectful not to. It'd be a travesty.
And the league is also young enough that, they don't really have to worry about voter fatigue. They don't have to worry about narratives. They're just going to award the people who are playing the best. Like, that's what's kind of nice about rooting, like kind of watching a fledgling league. You kind of see them. It's more about the love of the game than it is for the narratives and all that stuff, which helps with at least the awards ceremony, because you see the awards go and you're like, yeah, no, that makes sense. I get where that's coming from. Whereas,
overall, I felt like they got most of the awards right last year for the most part, and
even like the ones that like maybe we disagree with, it's like, okay, I can see where they're going with it, right?
Yeah,
whereas
it's like you look at the NBA, the number 2 guy instead of the number 1. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you look at the NBA sometimes and you see what they do, and you're like, all right, you didn't watch any games. It's like the stuff that came out with the Oscars this year, where they're like, oh, we're now requiring all the Oscar voters to actually watch the movies for the best winner or whatever for Oscar nominated films. And it's like, wait, they weren't doing that. They weren't watching the movies they were voting on.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah, that should have been a precursor to begin with. Okay, so your MVP is Glenn Tunga, mine's Sinnett. Danny's is Ben Holmes, obviously, because he loves him some Ben. I don't blame him. He was a great guy. Enjoyed having him on the pod. Offensive Player of the Year. Danny has Riley Hennessy. I have Glenn Tunga for this one in my little fantasy world where there is voter fatigue and they're like, we can't give the MVP to Tunga. I'm like, they're going to appease people by then giving him Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you have for OPO?
I think I also lean Hennessy. I think what's going to happen, or actually, you know what? I think I'm going to go Ben Holmes here, because I think if he's not going to win MVP, I imagine that Vienna is going to go flawless again. I think they're going to win all. They're going to win all their regular season games, and I think they're going to just give it to be like, well, Tunga was the best player overall, but we had a quarterback who put up really good numbers on a undefeated team. Which, did he win it last year as well?
No, Offensive Player of the Year last year was Zach.
Yeah, it was Zach, because he missed. Yeah, because Ben Holmes missed time. So Ben Holmes is probably not missing time. Because I was about to say, I was going to use the same exact argument for Riley Hennessy, but I think the Surge are going to drop a game or two, whereas I don't see Vienna dropping a game or two in the regular season. So I think that's going to push Ben in that conversation.
I like that. I think that's a good choice. I think you're safe with that one. Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think that this is really much of a discussion. Kyle Kitchens, mine and Danny's both.
And it's mine as well. It's unanimous. I mean, he's been arguably, I don't even know if arguably, he's been the best defensive player in the league since we've been watching. And I think that's just going to continue to show itself this year. Even on the Sea Devils, which are probably not going to be a great team, I still think he's going to have a monster season. And I think Hamburg's going to be better than we're probably giving them credit for because he's on that team.
Right. Yeah, it will be a big old spotlight on him. He's going to be the best player on Hamburg. And I mean, just the ridiculous amount of stats that he put up last year. I believe it was 17 and a half sacks, multiple forced fumbles. He had an interception. I didn't even know that until I looked it up today. But yeah, just ridiculous JJ Watt type of numbers, but in the ELF. So I don't see that changing. And that's no disrespect to AJ Wentland, who I think will definitely be in the conversation. I think Myron Ludwig will definitely be in the conversation, but it's Kyle Kitchens.
Yep.
Coach of the year. Danny and I are the same on this one as well. John Shoop of the Nordic Storm.
And this is where I'm going to diverge off a little bit. I'm going with Jack Del Rio just because he's an NFL coach. And I think we're going to see big improvement by Paris, just having that level of talent in the league. And I think we're going to see a lot of disguised packages that other coaches aren't going to be cooking up, because even though Jack Del Rio was not a great NFL coach by any means, he was a very middling NFL coach. He was still an NFL coach for a couple of years. And I think that's going to show a lot of credence in this level of competition.
Yeah.
So it's probably a really safe pick because I'm just taking the guy with NFL talent and I'm saying, he's going to be the best coach in the league. But it's one of those things we were saying, Madrid's going to win 11 games and Paris, might only win 8 games. I actually think Paris is going to win a lot more than we're going to give them credit to, just because they're going to, outcoach a lot of their teams, even if the talent deficit is there. And now I don't know how well that's going to translate in the playoffs, where in the playoffs, I mean, if you got the overwhelmingly talent odd advantage, that's just not going to matter a whole lot. But I think in the regular season where you got guys not trying as hard, I think if you're the better coach team, you're going to win 90% of the time, Yeah,
especially in the ELF. And I think that, to your point, once playoffs hit, it becomes a little bit different because Del Rio will then not be the only coach with high pedigree. Because I do believe that it's Vienna's head coach also had a short stint in the NFL. The Surge he's a ELF legend, has won pretty much every level of European football that you can, a lot of these top teams have coaches that have some sort of a, whether if it's D1 college, borderline NFL, maybe they, were a position coach here or there, they've got some sort of high pedigree experience.
Well, and you got guys trying harder in the playoffs, Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, hate to bring up Pittsburgh again, but Pittsburgh, they bullshit their way into a playoff spot every year because, I mean, they're arguably one of the best coached teams in the entire NFL.
Agreed.
But the issue is their talent deficit from the top rosters is massive. So in the regular season, when, you got some of the top end guys not trying as hard because it doesn't matter as much, the talent, just the absolute, drive by, a coach like Mike Tomlin is going to get the guys to win games and steal games when other people are showing vulnerability. Whereas in the playoffs, then you have to go travel to Buffalo and you play the Bills. And it's Oh, why is Josh Allen putting up video game numbers? And it's because he doesn't want to get bounced in the first round, Yeah. And I think a similar things might happen here with Paris, where they're going to upset some teams. People are oh man, we got to watch out for Paris. They're upsetting some really high competition. They're a pretty high seed. And then they're going to get into the playoffs and they're going to run into, a Stuttgart or Vienna. And they're wait, why did Riley Hennessy throw 6 touchdowns on us? What happened? Well, Riley Hennessy doesn't want to go home in the first round, Yeah. That's not
he's on a mission right now.
Yeah.
That brother wants to retire so bad.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. And, I do think that the one thing that Jack Del Rio does do well in, is defense. And with Paris not having quite as much talent on the defensive side of the ball as they do on the offensive side of the ball, I think having Del Rio as your head coach will help with that, because when he did win his Super Bowl ring, I believe he was the linebackers coach.
Okay.
And so, that's defense is his bread and butter. So, I think that'll really help out, especially since they have so much offensive firepower. Rookie of the year, I have Reed Sinnett. So does Danny. So, yeah, Reed Sinnett for both of us.
I am going to vary a little bit again, and I'm going to go with the same logic I used for Jack Del Rio. I'm actually going to go Keelan Cole here.
Ooh, I don't
because I think this Helvetic team is not going to be very good at all. But I feel like Keelan Cole might just have like insane numbers because, again, he's got he was genuinely a wide receiver 3 in the NFL for a little while. Like people had him on their fantasy rosters, Yeah.
He made $25 million in the NFL. Like you don't do that by being a scrub.
Yeah, exactly. So even though he's older and he hasn't played in a while, I think he's still going to go out there and he's going to feast. And it's going to be one of those things where, Helvetic's probably not going to be very good. They're probably not going to win a lot of games, but you're going to look at the end of each game and it's like, Keelan had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns every single game he played. And it's like, well, no one's going to match that production.
That's fair. Yeah, I just think with Reed Sinnett, again, it's the same idea of just he's on a team that has a lot of weapons offensively. And, it really, I guess, just depends in the end with the people who are in charge of voting for these things, if they weigh winning or not. Because I'm with you. I think that if winning is not included, I can very easily see a world where Keelan Cole is the runaway favorite for Rookie of the Year, which is so weird calling him Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's one of those things, too, where it's really just going to depend on the difference in numbers between the two guys. Like if they both had monster seasons, they're absolutely going to lean Reed because he's going to be on a better team and he's a quarterback. Yeah. But the thing is if he still had a really good season, but Keelan Cole has, 300 to 500 more yards than the next receiver, they're just going to give it to him because his numbers are going to be so outstanding. Right. Yeah. So.
And then last award on our list, Homegrown of the Year. Danny has Ludwig Myron, which don't blame him. That brother can ball, and he hits people with that intentions. I like that pick. I almost went that route, but instead I'm going to go Luis Geyer now that he's back for sure this season with the ELF and got the extension with Stuttgart. I'm going Luis Geyer.
I'm actually leaning with Danny here, which might be the first one that Danny and I agree on so far. Or no, we all agreed on Kyle Kitchens. But I like Myron a lot. I mean, he's one of my favorite players in the league, and I mean, he's so good. So I think we're just going to see similar production this year as well.
Yeah, especially, he's going to kind of be the anchor for that defense, over there in Copenhagen. And I definitely see a world where he's that guy. I like Ludwig again. I think that he's a very, very good player. He's also, I've seen him in some interviews recently. He seems like such a nice person too, where you're just like, oh, I want you to do well, buddy. Like he seems very kind. But Luis Geyer just, he did get that CFL tryout, which, is supposed to be the next tier of talent before you hit NFL. And again, just it's the consistency, you never see like gaudy numbers from Luis Geyer. You never see him, with one of those 150-yard, 4-touchdown type of games. But it's just like every week, 90 yards, touchdown, 90 yards, touchdown. And so I think that just the body of work by the end of the season is going to be kind of insurmountable. And you're going to blink and you're going to be like, wow, this guy had 1,200 yards and, 14 touchdowns over the course of the season. It's got to be him. So
yeah, absolutely.
So, well, cool. Any final words on our predictions, spicy takes, anything like that?
Nope, just ready to see the ELF again.
Yeah, very excited for the season to start. For everyone listening, again, that is May 17th. We are very excited. Yes, we will be covering all the games. So Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, for checking out this episode of Fourth Down Fiasco. As always, we ask that you follow us on social media. We are at @4thdown_pod on Twitter and at Fourth Down Fiasco on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, check out our sponsor, BetStamp. You can check them out at signupexpert.com/fiasco. Place a $10 bet. Can't do it for the ELF yet. And there are some whispers in the shadows. A lot of people are on board with it. But since you can't do it for the ELF, there's still NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. Put some money down on the WNBA because them girls be out there balling. My girl Paige Beckers, excited to see her win Rookie of the Year this season. So, but with that, thanks everybody for listening. This has been Tanner and Jordan saying so long, friends.
Hugs and kisses.
Well, I like school, and I like football, and I'm gonna keep doing them both because they make me feel good.